I personally think that the crisis is not yet over. It depends, of course, if we talk about the financial crisis or the economic crisis. Regarding the economic crisis, I think that clearly what matters is the liquidity and security of funding of the firms today through the crisis, which means that in the first stage, we will have companies observing the competitors, the environment, themselves trying to make some cost cutting, even if they are good companies, because nobody really wants to take risks in this period. So this period is a period of inertia where everybody is trying to observe the consequences, which is a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy in this case. Now, in the second stage, when people will observe that in fact they are really going through the crisis, not suffering too much from it, from the consequences of it, I think then it will become a very fertile ground, because many opportunities will be open to the market in terms of companies looking back at their core activities, their core added value, and trying in fact to think about new opportunities to rebound. And that will be a very good period, I think, a very interesting period. Well, first, as a professor of finance, I will have two main messages. The first one, taking the words out of the mouth of Theo Vermaelen, is don't blame the knife for the murder. We blame today a lot financial engineering. I think financial engineering is crucial for the financing world as well as the economy itself, because financial engineering is about sharing wealth and risk among the different actors of that economy. So refusing that is refusing the tools. Now, my main concern is about governance. Governance is like, in fact, trying to blame a car in a snowstorm while in fact you're not using snow tires. So you are blaming the wrong driver. The driver to really blame is the governance that has left actors play a strange game with these instruments in a way that in fact it was creating a latent negative spiral, totally unremarked, and where nobody was really having a distance to the subject, and nobody was anymore critical about the use that was made of the instruments. We left the toolbox in the hands of people playing with them without really looking at what kind of game we were creating. And that, I think, is a big lesson to learn from the crisis. Now, the second part, where I'm quite afraid of, is in fact I would say, the tentative over-regulation. Today we are talking about modifying the regulation without really showing that we have learned the lessons really from the crisis yet. And that's quite dangerous. Talking about more regulation is not realizing that today we have maybe the heaviest burden of regulation ever, with Sarbanes-Oxley, Basel II, Basel III for banks, IFRS rules, Sarbanes-Oxley, plus all the Solvency II rules for insurance companies. So all these rules are combining today into, in fact, a very heavy burden, where banks indeed have been spending a lot of money to integrate them into the systems. So I don't think that by putting more rules we will have a better world. I think we have to think about those rules. We have to think about the fact that most of these rules are about reporting, about monitoring, but they do not really push for more sensitivity of the management to those rules and exposures that the reporting is showing up. So we have to make sure the rules are built in parallel with the managerial objectives of the institutions. Otherwise, you create a burden of rules for reporting reasons, where reports are put into the closets for the auditors at the end of the year, but in fact the management does not really use that information for the day-to-day activity and the day-to-day strategy of the institution. And that is not really in fact creating a better world. On a more business-oriented framework, apart from the financial messages, I think that this is a good time for reform. It's a very good time to go back to the basics for the firms and for governments. And I think firms have to use this time, this period, to try to push, to lobby for a real reform of the rules, of the way we look at work, added value, and creation of added value, and therefore the economy itself. In Europe today, we see so many countries where we don't have a real state of law, typically. We have changing rules all the time. We have retrospective application of rules, retroactive application of rules. And this is not creating a ground of security for the firms to invest. The challenge of Europe today is what do we have to keep and what do we have to change? We have to keep this capacity to assess the problems in a less volatile environment than many other places in the world. But still, we have to be capable of changing some rules which are creating a lot of inertia today to change.